Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's panel. My name is Beatrice Lee, and I'm the Director of Trade Finance Product Management for MUFG. During the past year and a half, the world has become acutely aware of just how critical and sensitive global trade really is. From crippled logistics providers to blocked canals to scarcity of goods, it's become increasingly important for companies to protect their supply chains and have their businesses remain strong as well. Today, we'll be talking about a hot topic, which is supply chain finance. And specifically, we'll be looking at supply chain finance for mid-cap companies. We will talk about some of the tips for successful deployment, and we'll look at drivers of these programs as well. I am delighted today to be joined by Chris McDonald of M Chemical Company and Monique Jayakumar of Q-Trade Tea and Herbs. Both Chris and Monique have successfully deployed supply chain finance programs at their respective companies, and I am so excited to hear about their supply chain journey, especially in light of all of the challenges that this pandemic has brought on. So before we start going into the questions, I'd love to have our panelists introduce themselves. Chris, why don't we start with you?
Sure. I'm Chris McDonald. I'm the president of M Chemical, and we are a global manufacturer and marketer of specialty chemicals to the mid and downstream petroleum industry, as well as to the plastics and paint and coatings industry.
Great. Thank you so much, Chris. Monique, how about you?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Monique Jayakumar. I'm originally from Sri Lanka. I'm still kind of have that accent. So I have been in the US for the last 27 years, and I founded this company, Q-Trade Teas and Herbs, now 26 years ago, and we are a specialty tea company importing teas, herbs from about 15 countries. So that's it. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Wonderful. Great. Thank you, Chris. And great. Thank you, Monique. You know, I love that you've both built such fantastic and successful companies and in such diverse areas as well. So I think that'll be great to give our viewers some different perspectives from your different businesses. So let's start with the topic that's on everyone's mind, I think, which is the pandemic. You know, I think it goes without saying that COVID-19 had a tremendous impact on the world. The staggering losses, the disruption to life as we know it, and of course, the impact to global trade as well. I think the list goes on and on. So my first question is, how has the pandemic affected your supply chains? And Monique, why don't we start with you?
Yes, the COVID hit our company as badly as many other companies. So fortunately, we have a mixed bag of business. One, the most affected being our food service business, when all the restaurants closed down, and we were wondering what to do with our inventory. So we went slow in ordering and so on. When there was signs of something emerging and other businesses taking off, getting going, we started reaching out to our suppliers, and then to our shock, we found all kinds of issues. There were delays because of COVID issues in the respective countries, and all rates going up. And the most recent rate that has hit all of us very, very badly is the freight rate from China in particular. It used to be $2,000 pre-COVID, and now it's $14,000 as of now. Last week, $12,000 to $14,000, and that there again there have been delays. So there are numerous delays. I want to digress for a moment. This weekend, I went to Nordstrom to buy myself a sports jacket, and I found the inventory there to be completely gone. You know, just they did not have anything, and one or two old discarded jackets were there at 3 times the price. So it's an indication that everybody is short of inventory and they are struggling to get it out. And it was same with Q-Trade. So we are struggling to get our inventory back up again. So that's the status. So it definitely has affected big time. You know, so we are trying to manage as best as we can.
Yeah, no, thank you, Monique. That's eye-opening. I think a lot of people can relate as well. So, Chris, what was your perspective on this? Was it similar for you at Chemical?
Well, we were actually pretty lucky. Our supply chains and our supply lines are long, and we had filled them far in advance of COVID, even knowing it was gonna hit. So we were okay from a supply standpoint. Later on, we did see some postponement of orders from our customers in the mid and downstream petroleum industry as you saw oil prices dropped and they went through some difficult period of time. And our customers that are second and third tier suppliers to the aerospace and automotive industry, they slowed down some of their purchases. But because our customers were all deemed essential, therefore we were essential. And so we were lucky in that we did not have to have any, we never stopped operating. We were in business the whole time. So all things considered, we were very lucky to be in the markets that we're in.
Good. No, I'm glad for that, Chris. And for both of you, it's good to hear that your businesses have been able to stay strong during this entire pandemic. I know a lot of other companies haven't been nearly so lucky with folks scrambling to stay alive, to find new vendors. You know, it goes without saying that the pandemic was extremely disruptive to global supply chains around the world. So, Chris, I'd like to continue with you on this next question, which is, what made you decide to deploy a supply chain finance program?
As I mentioned earlier, Beatrice, we have long supply chains, but we're a local supplier to our customers. So we want to have products always ready for our customers. And that requires cash, and we're growing. And we are always looking for ways to keep growing, to make money, and to put more cash in the bank account. So when the supply chain finance program came along, we were very interested.
Makes sense. Makes perfect sense. Thank you, Chris, so much for that. And let's turn it to Monique now. So Monique, you've had your supply chain finance program for a while. How have your suppliers reacted to the introduction of supply chain finance?
I think they were all thrilled. They were very thrilled once they got to know how seamless it was. And once they joined the program also, they found things working out very smoothly. There were no delays, and normally they would have had much more issues in their respective banks in different countries. So this came as a godsend to them, and it was a godsend to us. Especially when we are having situations where very, very large companies are making us give them terms, up to 120 days. These are humongous world companies that we have become their bankers, more or less, and we had to get suppliers' help on that. So when this came along, we passed it on to them, and once it was explained, those of who joined this are extremely happy. I would recommend this to everybody who want to work on it. And of course, it helped our cash flow quite a bit during a very difficult time. But in any case, it was going to be helpful even non-difficult times because of the terms that some of the large companies are imposing on us to give them terms instead of the other way around. So that I think I would strongly recommend anybody who is somewhere interested in using this. It was an excellent program from my point of view. I was very happy that it was Union Bank introduced that to us, and we have been around and we have worked with many banks. This was one of the best programs when it came to management of supply chain cash. Thank you.
That's fantastic to hear. Thank you so much, Monique. And I think you made a really good point, which is supply chain finance. It's great during challenging times like these, especially, but it's also great during normal times as well, when you don't have global pandemics breaking out in the world. It's something that small suppliers, especially in foreign countries, can really use to their advantage. And a lot of them are very eager, the ones that we've spoken to, they look forward to using programs like these. So all great points. So let's stick with you for a little bit longer. Can you talk a little bit about how supply chain finance has made an impact on your relationships with your suppliers? So the buyer-supplier relationship?
Yeah, so as I more or less covered this in my earlier comments, it has improved our relationship and helped them quite a bit and helped us in the process as well. We get, even from difficult countries like Mozambique, we had no issues, and they were absolutely thrilled to have this going. And uh, so it has actually helped us and helped them in the process. And I was particularly happy with our help to with this program to Mozambique Supplies, which extremely poor country. They had many issues. So that was one example. Of course, the other countries also benefited, but I just quoting one example of a country that needs a lot of help. So we were happy to, they were happy to take advantage of it, and that improved our relationships. And we were happy to purchase large volumes from them and get that business going.
Great, yeah. And I think I want to reemphasize that point too, which you brought up, which is, a lot of people view supply chain finance as just a working capital tool, a way to discount receivables early, but it can be even more than that. It can really be used to strengthen your buyer and supplier relationship. So for instance, when you nominate a supplier in a country that's hard for them to get financing, these suppliers are going to be very grateful to be able to join these programs to benefit from the affordable financing. And you essentially are helping them to grow their own businesses, which is just strengthening the supply chain overall between both you and your vendors. So thank you, Monique. Let's switch gears a little bit now. So I'll turn it back to Chris. In your perspective, what have been some of the benefits of supply chain finance so far to your business?
So yeah, Beatrice, kind of what you said, our customers really love being paid in 10 days. And we were not, in about 10 days. We were having all these discussions where, we wanted to pay in longer terms, and they wanted us to pay in shorter terms. And the supply chain financing platform just made it easy and simple and straightforward for us to agree on a way to get the payments set up. And then also our suppliers really found and find the letters of credit cumbersome, that whole process. It's expensive and there's lots of paperwork involved. And when we brought up this supply chain finance program and said it would eliminate all of that paperwork, they really jumped on that. So that's really helped us.
That's great. That's a good point, Chris. There are so many different kinds of tools out there in trade finance, in supply chain finance, and it's really important to find the one that fits for your business, that fits for your suppliers overall. And like you mentioned, supply chain is a great tool to use for many of your vendors as well. So we've heard about how supply chain finance can both help you and your suppliers, but what about some of the challenges? So Chris, what challenges did you face when launching your program?
Really, so far, Beatrice, it's gone quite well. A couple of little minor challenges are some of our factories only sell to us through dedicated channels, and those dedicated channels might be a distributor, and they might be operating on thin margins. And so the discounted invoice might be a big percentage of their profit. So they have to go back to the factory and have some discussions. And so we're still working through those. But I think they're going to work out okay. But it just takes a little bit longer to get that implemented. And then I guess the only other challenge is that a lot of our suppliers, English is not their first language, and they would like to see the agreements in their native language. And right now it's only available in English. So that slows down the process also. But all in all, things keep moving forward, and more of our suppliers get signed up for the program. So it's working really well.
Great. That's fantastic to hear. Okay, wonderful. So I just have one last question for the both of you now. Monique, we can start with you. And that question is, what advice do you have for other middle market companies who are looking to do supply chain finance?
So before I answer that question, I want to, maybe it's in the same question, I want to comment about some of the issues we are having in getting the country's banking system approved. So we have had issues with countries like Argentina, Brazil, even a country like Australia, which have stringent banking rules. That there are there seem to be some difficulty in getting them approved, and the legal system of legal approval process was taking some time. That was one of the concerns or one of the delays that took place. But those countries that are already approved and ready to go, we have had no difficulty, and they have embraced this program quite well, as I told you, and they are thrilled to have it. It seems seamless, and even the operation of it, meaning the transfers of money, by the time you get the invoice, and it's within days, they are able to get the money, and they have been very happy about all that, so they didn't have to go through this. So this was for a program very recently introduced. I think it is a good program. I'm sure we will overcome some of those issues that I spoke about that were hindering some of our clients and in a few other countries to join the program. But by and large, overall, the countries that got approved and ready to go, we are very happy, very happy.
That's a good point, Monique. If I could jump in and explain a little bit more about that. So it's important to point out that some countries, they do have their local laws or jurisdiction regulations that prohibit an offshore bank, for instance, from providing services. So that is a definitely important part of the analysis to consider when any company is launching a supply chain program. So Monique, I'll turn it back to you now for advice to other companies that are interested.
I think I strongly recommend the program to any company that is interested, for sure. We have benefited, it's a matter, and I'm sure they will all benefit from this program. Fortunately, interest levels have been so low, and so that was a good thing. There was hardly any fluctuation between one period of time to another period of time. Say 3 months later or 6 months later, had very minimal price adjustments were required because of that. So that was a good thing. The interest being kept low, and undue fluctuation of interest was not seen. Because of that, also they seem to like it, and also the overall service was also excellent, I would say. I mean, it was unbelievably. Normally, I don't handle these things. I have staff handling it. All these this kind of approvals and all that. But I took a personal interest in this because for me, supply chain is so important in the business. So I wanted to make things good for them, so that we have supplies. That seems to be a big problem for me. Supply is as important or even more important than the client even. So I pay a lot of attention to that's how, although I'm kind of retired, semi-retired rather, I have taken personal interest in this particular aspect of our company's programs.
Thank you so much, Monique. It's good to hear. And Chris, the same question to you. Any advice for companies out there?
Yeah, I would suggest they try it. I mean, the worst thing that can happen is your trusted supplier says no, and you have the same deal that you already have. So, but many of your your suppliers will be very excited to be paid in about 10 days. And it's just going to benefit your business.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Chris, Monique. Really great tips, very insightful conversation today. You know, I think a lot of companies out there, smaller companies that might be part of other supply chain finance programs for their own buyers, they never think that they can launch their own program as well internally, but this just proves that supply chain finance really is for everyone. It works across industries. It works very well for mid-cap companies as well. And I think it's a wonderful testament to have both of you speak about your respective businesses for this panel. So again, thank you. And I wish you all the best of summers and best of weeks. And thanks again. Enjoy the conference.